Hello everybody, this is Johns Hopkins with Baltimore Heritage, and we're back with another of our 5-Minute Histories videos. And today I'm at the intersection of Charles and Baltimore Streets, City Center, Baltimore, at least as far as numbering goes. Everything north of Baltimore Street is north something, North Charles, North Calvert, same for the south. And everything east and west of Charles Street is east and west something, East Saratoga, West Saratoga. And what better place than City Center for the headquarters building of America's first railroad, the B&O Railroad. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk a little bit about the B&O, a little bit about the building, and then I want to share something with you about the building that Baltimore historian Wayne Schaumburg shared with me several years ago. And I bet when you learn it, you're going to say, well, I'll be darned. And then every time you walk past this building, you will look up at it for here on out. But I'm going to leave that as a teaser and come back to it at the end. Let's start with the B&O. The B&O, of course, was formed in 1827 by prominent Baltimore businessmen who were concerned about the opening of the Erie Canal, connecting New York City to the Great Lakes and then the interior of America. They were worried that the canal would siphon off business from the Port of Baltimore and Baltimore City. Luckily for us, the same year the Erie Canal opened, 1825, a railroad opened called the Stockton and Darlington Railroad in England, proving that this newfangled steam locomotive was really a thing that could work. We borrowed that concept and I'll dare say improved it. Everything from inventing no-slip wheels so these big trains could go uphill to inventing how to build bridges over enormously wide rivers. By the early 1900s, the B&O, though, was no longer America's only railroad. In fact, it wasn't even America's biggest railroad. That title went to Cornelius Vanderbilt's New York Central Railroad, followed closely by Philadelphia's Pennsylvania Railroad. The Penn and the B&O had been duking it out, buying up rights of way and whatnot, trying to gain prominence into and out of Baltimore, this hub for points north and south and west into America. They had reached somewhat of a detente, each with separate terminals. The B&O had the Mount Royal terminal for passengers, and the Pennsylvania Railroad had a terminal at what is now the Penn Station. And the B&O had established dominance for travelers going southward, and the Pennsylvania Railroad dominance for travelers going northward. By 1900, however, a gentleman named Alexander Cassatt enters the picture. He, incidentally, is the brother of Impressionist painter Mary Cassatt. Think the boating party, if you know that picture. But in 1900, Cassatt orchestrates the merger of the B&O and the Pennsylvania Railroads. But this was in an era where Teddy Roosevelt was president, and he was none too keen on railroad mergers or monopolies in general. And so the two, although they were under one board of directors, the two companies kept separate identities. So in the late 1800s, though, the B&O, with its enormous prowess in American industry, had a building befitting its stature, just a couple blocks away, a Second Empire building that unfortunately burned in the great 1904 fire, like most buildings downtown. So in the aftermath of the fire, the B&O was determined to rebuild even bigger and grander, but keeping a low profile from this Teddy Roosevelt anti-monopoly crowd. And so they built here 2 blocks away under the name the B&O Railroad. There was also more than a little bit of civic pride, because by 1906, when this building went up, the B&O stock had overtaken the Pennsylvania Railroad stock in value. So this was a little bit of us cheering ourselves onward. When the building opened, 1906, it was really a symbol of pride and rebirth, the spirit that we can rebuild after this tremendous fire. The newspapers heaped lavish praise on it. They said things like the building was dignified, impressive, and monumental, an adornment to the city, and a monument to the city's progress. So what about this building? It was designed by architects Parker and Thomas, a Baltimore and Boston-based firm. They also designed the Belvedere Hotel, if you know about that building. At 13 stories tall, it was the second tallest building in Baltimore at the time. The Continental Trust building, just a few blocks away at 16 stories, had that title. And its Beaux-Arts shape was a big H to allow light into all 1,600 of its windows. On the inside, the decorations were lavish with mahogany doors and marble floors. The creme de la creme was probably the grand lobby off of Charles Street here, with not one but two enormous marble staircases underneath enormous chandeliers. It really embraced electric lighting throughout, had filtered water, and the air was, quote, filtered and washed. And so it was really a modern marvel at its finest. And the whole thing was fireproof, made of steel and reinforced concrete, learning a lesson from 1904 for sure. Just a few quick words. In 1984, the B&O had really become part of the Chessie Railroad, and this building was no longer being used for railroad offices. It was renovated for modern offices, and then in 2009, it was restored again into the Hotel Monaco, which is here today. All right, so let me wrap up about the sculptures on the front of the building and the thing that historian Wayne Schaumburg implanted in my head, and I think I'm going to try to implant in yours. Over the grand entrance on Charles Street, there are sculptures of two gods. On the left is the god Mercury. You can tell him by his winged hat, the messenger of the gods. Clearly the B&O is going to speedily take your goods to market. And then on the right is a figure, an allegorical figure called Progress of Industry. He is holding, on one hand, a torch leading the way into the future, and on the other hand, he's cradling a locomotive, clearly the B&O. And then this is what Wayne Schaumburg pointed out to me about 20 years ago. He said, now take a look at that right-hand figure, and then think of a young President Bill Clinton. Clearly, Bill Clinton was not the inspiration for the sculpture, but the likeness is really remarkable. All right, thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.